So I'm sitting here by a beautiful mountain stream in Switzerland, thinking about automation, as you would, and the next few years and what's going to happen. And it seems to me that there's a useful spectrum of tasks that people can think about. On the one end of the spectrum, there is stuff like chess, where essentially you have what is called perfect information. So the board is completely open to everybody, and you have clear winning conditions. Right, the checkmate is checkmate, and nothing drifts in time. So a good position today or a checkmate today is a checkmate tomorrow. And the cost of failure is fairly low. Right, so if you lose 10,000 games, it doesn't cost you much. If that helps you learn, that's fine. So these kinds of things, and there are lots of these kinds of things in the world. On one end of the spectrum, obviously, you have chess, you have Go, things like protein folding sort of go into that space as well, because there is the right answer. Testing for it is a little trickier, but there is the right answer. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have things like art, or you have things like being a kindergarten teacher or whatever, where basically there is no perfect information. Nobody knows what's good or not. There is subjectivity. There is no knowledge of the full picture of what's going on. Right, you may have a child in the kindergarten who has issues at home and you don't know about this, or in the case of art, or let's say business strategy. Right, you don't know what your competitors are going to be doing. So no perfect information, no clear winning conditions, high cost of failure, right? If you screw up as a kindergarten teacher, that may only show up in 20 years, but it will. And you have no way of playing this out 10,000 times and figuring out what's best for this individual child. There is high subjectivity. There is change in time as well, which is very important, right? A great piece of art for today may not be a great piece of art for tomorrow, because it's context dependent. It's saying something that is relevant in culture now, and even more so for let's say a business strategy. A great business strategy today may not be a great business strategy tomorrow, and probably was not a great business strategy 20 years ago for this company, because the situation changes. And so you have this kind of spectrum of tasks, with chess on the one end of the spectrum and art on the other end of the spectrum. And the way you think about these tasks and people engaged in these tasks and what's going to happen with them over the next 2, 3, 5, 10 years, I think is very different. So if you're somebody whose main value creation is in a kind of problem domain which is closer to chess, then I think you need to pivot quite significantly. People who have felt this earliest probably are translators, right? And you can say, well, in translation there is a little bit of subjectivity, there is a little bit of what's great translation today is not great translation tomorrow, but for the vast majority of the translation work that people needed doing commercially from a value creation standpoint, that is close enough to chess that machines could basically learn it, because they could there is enough data. What is a good, accurate translation today is going to be an accurate translation tomorrow, at least for a considerable period of time. And so, they're the machine is just going to be better, because there is a clear what is called loss function. You know what winning looks like, and you can just translate a bunch of things, see where you're wrong, correct, and just improve. And so humans are not going to be able to compete at the level of the cost per item, cost per result in those things. And then you have things like biology, for example, or physics, where you do have ultimate judge, which is reality, and it's sort of objective, but it takes a long time, for example, to prove that the result is correct, to try out a new drug and things like that. And so that's going to be trickier, because you cannot run a million experiments completely in virtual reality. People are trying as much as possible to do the simulation, but it's hard. And then if your main value creation is sort of on that end of the spectrum of creative strategy, art, kindergartens, A, you probably have quite a bit more time. B, I think what you need to do now is actually quite clear, because you don't have to do a hard pivot, but I think it would be useful for you to focus on precisely the most subjective part, right? So everybody talks about taste, and I think they're right. Ultimately, what really separates you as, let's say, a creative strategist from somebody else is taste. But how do you make sure that you spend the most of your time curating your taste and then encoding your taste in a way that whatever AI you're going to use is going to use it. And there's a big technical war going on in terms of how to best encode taste, how to make sure that the drift of taste stays in sync between you and the machine part of your sort of symbiotic relationship between the human and the machine and all of that. So I think it's useful to map your value creation and your tasks and your contribution on the spectrum from sort of chess to art, and to be clear-headed about where you are really, and then adapt your course of action accordingly. Because if you don't, if you're going to be misguided about thinking that this AI thing is going to pass away, no, it won't. Maybe right now it has not gotten to you, even though your problem domain is chess-like, because there are cost limitations or because it's still early, but it will get to you. If the problem is of the shape where the AI can just learn from doing it a million times and there's clear winning condition and clear definition of what's right, then it will get there. So you might as well start pivoting. And if you believe that there is a significant ingredient of this kind of gooey, taste-driven, unclear, subjective human thing in what you do, then just go all in on that and figure out how you can really push very hard on that, because I think that's going to be your moat. That's going to be the only thing that's going to keep you afloat. And hopefully it's going to make you much more successful and much more productive over the course of the next few years. So that's a little thought for you from the mountain stream. I hope you have a very good day.